Better. I'm live. I am getting some, I think, slower internet or too many devices on one internet connection. Seems to give me stops and starts and stalls, but I'm hoping that that is not happening on your end, whoever you are. Let me just type this out. This, of course, I reiterate this every single time. This channel, okay, is only meant, as I'm typing, for mature adults over 21. And again, I'm going to say I stick with working with the males because of the types of responsibilities they often get, and they tend to clam up a lot. And some males feel like they can open up to females a little better than their friends and things like that. So, anyway, I mean, I'm not prohibiting females. I'm just saying I orient to males on purpose. So I'm Dr. Lueth. It is 12:08 p.m. Eastern New York Time, USA. It is May 18th, 2025. I have a plan for using this amount of space that I have. I don't have a lot. Thank you for the like. I don't have a lot of space, so I am doing my best to try and make a bit of a studio. And I have to work out the fact that I have an easel, and there's some other things that I didn't have in my last place that um, I do have now. But most of it, unfortunately, went into the trash or got given away because I had to move quickly, which is a huge bummer. And I'm just trying not to think about it. So someone did get online yesterday and told me they like the dance when I do the dance video. So I know. So what I'm trying to do, I have other things to do. I volunteer. So I don't know if my body's going to cooperate, but we'll see what happens. Okay. I can push myself to a certain extent. So I will be trying to do some dance on here, some fun dance, and some music, some singing, other kind of things. Hello, how are you? uh, so that's basically upcoming, and I said I would do it. I will do it. I got to push myself. My what the orthopedist keeps telling me I have all these itises, or that arthritis and tendonitis and bursitis. So people didn't tell me not when you hit. Um, I'm not sure I like this lighting. I'm working on that too. That when you go over the hill, you slide down face first, a lot faster than people tell you. Like my whole body, after I hit 40, started tanking on me, and I'm 53 now. And basically, what I'm looking at some point in the future is I'm just going to be titanium from the waist down. And I am not really in the mood to get two new hips and two knees. Um, not at all. So I'm trying to do physical therapy, pain shots, and other things so that I don't have to do that quite yet because they don't last for years and years and years. Anyway, that's the scoop on the dancing. Some music, some singing. I have to figure out some of the reason why I'm being censored because I can't really find legally in the U.S. why that would be the case. Um, and I wouldn't need permissions for some of it because it's technically a radio station and I'm running a nonprofit, which unfortunately I'm probably going to have to dissolve because a lot of people want things, but they're not willing to stand up, get up, and go through some of the things that you need to go through to help get it done. Okay? I get a lot of complaints. I get a lot from people. They've got all these great ideas, but they don't really want to work or they don't want to try. They want someone else to make their life better for them. And uh, I ask for volunteers. I've asked for donations. I've asked for help over and over and over again, and really has not come. I'm not saying some of it won't, but it hasn't. So my working budget every month is about $40. Now, in that $40, I also need to buy necessities. So my working budget is zero. Pay for the internet. I had to buy a new laptop. It is not top of the line, I can assure you. The lighting that I had and some of the things that I had when I was at the other studio, I don't have now. I'm hoping that this is a very temporary place to live. Regardless, there are a lot of people who want a lot of things done. So I just keep asking for help. I just keep asking because I know that there are people, especially paranormalists and all that kind of stuff, who probably have extra cameras and extra equipment they don't need. I know that there are probably guitars and musical instruments sitting in people's basements or attics collecting dust. Okay. I know that there are people who bought cameras and other kinds of things that they don't ever use anymore. Well, you could donate it. And while God Cares Ministries is up and running, I have not been putting updates like I'm supposed to do legally because I can't be the executive director and the secretary and the treasurer all at one time, and I have other things I need to do in this time frame that I have. Um, yeah, I get that. I appreciate that. I do. I don't even have a way open now for monetary donation at this juncture anyway. So not worried about it. Don't sweat it. I appreciate that. I mean, someone else was working on a movie and said that when they're done with it, they're going to give me some equipment so I can wait. I have to find a way for people to donate monetarily, but basically, what I have done is put instead of money, um, I can use an Amazon gift card and it can be mailed to me. I mean, it's not that way, nobody's sending money in the mail. And the US mail is a little more secure than some of the things online. I'm leery about some of the things online because the ministry account got attacked and I had to shut down all my banking at PNC, unfortunately. But I also have for gifting instead of money, because some people like to gift better because they know that way it makes them feel secure that the money is being used properly. So instead of sending money, I do have a wanted list of things that I could use from Amazon, and I will update it soon. But for now, there really isn't any way for anybody to do that except locally giving me cash. But my address is in the description, so people who I can always use Amazon gift cards, always, and it's safer to do that sometimes than cash or checks or online transfers because I'm not entirely sure I trust all that anymore, considering my ministry account got attacked. But I appreciate it, and some people, yeah, don't even really have a lot of money, and they're like me, they want to help, but they don't know how. So those are the things that I'm setting up and I work on. But I will get some dancing in. It's good exercise. I got to be a little more careful with myself and trying. I'm not used to that. I'm used to just like I don't wreck myself sometimes on purpose in order to keep people safe or stop something from happening or get in the way. Um, yeah, yeah, okay, I appreciate that. No, that's what I'm saying. Gift card, and if you send it like UPS or through the mail, then if it's just a little bit safer. Plus, for me, I prefer sometimes the US mail or UPS because people have their hands on it. And that way, most of that stuff makes it to me, especially UPS. And I know internationally it costs a little more, but I can always use a gift card for Amazon. Always. I mean, there's equipment I can get, necessities. So that is definitely an option. And my address is, or you can do it online too, a digital one. I know my email is in there, but my address is in there. So mail or digital, whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Some people don't feel comfortable using the computer like that. They don't really like it. So for those who prefer, they can still mail, but online too. Yep, which is fine. I think my email address is on there. Yeah, all my information is on there, and I did change my address. So my information in the description is correct. But I wanted to touch on a few things really quickly. I know that in the U.S. it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and so in the U.S. if you're struggling, you feel weird, or you're going through something that you think that nobody understands, or you find yourself in a situation that you didn't expect, like you get blindsided by something, okay? And it could be anything. I mean, it might be that you're trying to get clean off of some drug and your world seems very different without it. So, but it might be that you just got a divorce, or you lost your job, or you've been sort of staving off depression because you're a positive thinker, which unfortunately can sometimes hide some things that are bothering you. Dial 988, okay? Everyone here in the US, there are certain groups that are trying very, very hard to have a human being talk to you when you call. An actual human being, not some, you don't need to leave messages. So there are volunteers, there are groups that get paid. Those calls get handled. And there are places in the US when you do have an issue and you call, they will come directly to you. Sometimes you can get picked up where you are. Sometimes you need to go to a shelter. Sometimes you need to go to a rehab. Sometimes you need to talk to somebody right away. Online mediators, crisis counselors, just do it. Okay. There are people who have known me and all the way up to like 40 some years old. There would not be a single thought in my head that I would want to commit suicide. But I ended up actually attempting it at one point. So people would never, ever, ever, of all the people, if you put me in a room with a lot of people who know me or been around me, guarantee you they would put me as the last person to ever think or try suicide. But after my whole family died, and then I got sick from a rare neurological thing that took a long time to diagnose, and I couldn't earn my own money, and my money just started, flying out of my bank account because that's just what happens. I didn't have an income, and then without having a lot of money, then you get poor, and then you get even more depressed. So I did try. I can usually handle things really, really well. I've had to handle some serious things and make very difficult decisions. But in a way, it just built up. Yes, that's good. Never have right. It's true. I mean, that can happen to people too because it might be that, I mean, it might be a chemical thing, it might be an environmental thing, it might be just a personality thing. Some people like me, we're really empathetic and we can pick up on other people's issues. We can tell when somebody's having a bad day, even if they're smiling. We can tell when somebody's like ready to burst. We can tell when people feel sad, even if they're smiling. So I agree. If it got to the point where I did end up homeless for a short period of time, lived in my car. And gratefully, someone allowed me to park my car in their driveway. So I was at least able to go in the house and take a shower and use the phone and those kind of things. But I ended up in a residential program where got tons of therapy. I got therapy. They sent me to a psychiatrist, and they also ruled a lot of things out that it couldn't be. So that was good because I didn't have to worry about any of that. I knew I wasn't losing my mind in a schizophrenic way or something like that. But there was just a lot of built up grief in me. And it turned into severe depression because life, sometimes you got to keep going. Somebody dies in your life, you still got to keep going. My children died, I still had to keep going. I had an uncle committed suicide, still had to keep going. I had to still keep going when my brother died. I had to keep going when my other brother died. I had to keep going when my dad died. And I had to keep going when my mother died. And it all just hit me like a ton of bricks, just like running into a wall. I couldn't be positive about anything. I was just stuck in this like grief for too long a period of time. And because my family were all deceased, my family were all deceased by the age of, by the time I turned 40. So I didn't think I had anything to live for anymore. So I tried to commit suicide, and it didn't work. And I was really pissed off about it. And it took me a good 2 years of therapy to not be pissed off about it. And there are occasions where, I feel like nobody gives a shit. I still have to struggle with it. I still have to push some thoughts out of my mind sometimes. But I do have a therapist, and I take some medication. A lot of it, though, is meant to help me with a neurological thing that's kind of like Parkinson's. But I do take a little bit of mental health medication for depression. So it wasn't until I got through a certain amount of therapy did I realize how to process things a little better and to cut myself some slack, because I'm my own worst critic, and I've had to be on the ball for myself and my family for a really long time, and it was expected of me by the time I was 12 years old. So a lot of my childhood just didn't exist. So trying to like go over all that time with a therapist, it took some time, my whole life. But in the process, I learned how to be more understanding of other people, and to put up walls so that my empathy, so it doesn't hurt me as much, because sometimes I can feel the feelings of other people. It's hard to be an empathetic person because it hurts, and sometimes you can feel the emotional pain of other people, especially you get around them enough. So I learned how to put walls up, and I learned how to discern my feelings and my thoughts from other people. I'm not saying I can read minds. It's just that when you're highly empathetic like I am, sometimes you can just tell by somebody's tone of voice, or like you hear somebody on the phone and you can just tell that they're in some kind of crisis, or they're having a hard time, or they're trying to hide something or be brave. But grief is something I can pick up from anybody. And it's like I could go to the grocery store and be feeling really, really sad all of a sudden. Usually, if it's all of the sudden, if it's just like that very, very quickly, I know it's not coming from me. That's another reason why I can check myself with the therapist, and I can check myself with how I know I am, which is another good reason for doing these live. It's sort of like a live diary, too. And if I really need to go back and check, I can go back to 2023 and see how I was and what I was thinking. It helps to keep track of symptoms. It helps so that people, it might not be today, but it could be 4 weeks from now. Somebody runs across this and they're like, okay, well, somebody else knows how I feel. Somebody else knows what I mean. So, this the one good thing about the internet is that it doesn't really matter about time. So somebody might need to know something that I'm going to talk about in 2 weeks, and they won't see it for 5 years. Right. Well, yeah, but this is what I'm saying. People tend to look at other people, especially males, asking for help means you're weak, and that's just such a bullshit false statement. It just, yeah, right. It's no problem, because I know what it's like, and I know what it's like when you try and hide it. You try and walk around with a brave face. I mean, I met someone who lost her children too, and the way she put it was really, really helpful. She called it zombie mode. So when my children died, like, I didn't really feel it. I didn't really feel it till a year later. I was just in shock, stunned the whole time. People were guiding me around. You got to do a funeral. You got to do this. You got to get right. And I mean, but she called it zombie mode. And that is the best description that I've ever heard of it. That's exactly what I was. I was just a walking zombie. My Italian heritage, right? Yeah, so expect really, right. I know sometimes it's just extra difficult for males because you're supposed to be the rock. You're supposed to be the ones who know how to handle it. You're supposed to be right. Stoic, you're supposed to just be able to handle whatever and be the strong one and be the one who gets up, goes to work, that, keeps people together and people lean on males. And I mean, it's not fair sometimes. And when I am around females, when they start missing that point, I lose some females as acquaintances or friends because I mentioned this, like just being way too hard. But when it comes to males, I know that it's harder to admit. I mean, you guys build this up sometimes. Sometimes you guys do it to yourselves. It's not nothing that can't be talked about. I mean, I grew up a badass and I grew up having to handle all this stuff. And so once I got into my 30s, everybody thought I was just fine all the time. And everybody expected me to just be fine all the time and to be a rock and to handle situations that most people couldn't. So, in that sense, I understand. But males tend to open up to females a little better. So, if you do go looking for therapy or someone at least to talk to, it doesn't even have to be therapy, but someone who's willing to listen. Sometimes males prefer females because we tend to be more gentle. But it takes a great deal of strength to understand that you need help. And it takes even more strength to reach out for help. So that's why I spend most of my time trying to address males because no matter, right, there's certain heritages and countries where it's just expected more than in other countries. So some countries are better about understanding that both males and females have certain expectations on them, and it's hard at a certain point once you're known for being the strong one or the rock or the one that people lean on or whatever, then it starts building that they just automatically assume that you can handle anything, and it just is not the case. We're not, as humans, we're not meant to handle everything alone anyway. We're not meant to do that. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to listen to each other more. We're supposed to judge less. We're supposed to understand each other better, which is why talking about it is something that's important. Because if people are just keeping it all, like in private little rooms, or just keeping it all shoved in, then, eventually you're going to blow. I mean, and it could, actually ruin your life. So getting it out and finding ways to get it out in words or music or something, do have to be introspective. You have to look at you yourself and understand how you work before you can actually address some of this stuff. But I tell people every single day, you're not weak for asking for help. You're strong. Okay? Just that's bullshit. People have, like, they try and put that out there and in everyone, especially males, that like you're weak if you ask for help. And that is just not true. It's not. Recognizing that you can't go on, recognizing that, right. But here's the other thing is that I did recognize at one point that I was the rock for my family and I was the one that kept everybody strong and together and was able to handle the emergencies time after time. I knew that if I fell, if I stumbled, if I had a hard time, if I went down, then my whole family. And a lot of that is put on males. Sometimes it's put on females. I'm just saying a lot of it typically still, no matter what kind of, you know, no matter what we've learned as a society, it still kind of gets shoved on males more than females. So I walked around just trying to put off all those things that were bothering me. A lot of my life, a lot of creativity I had to put aside. A lot of things that I wanted to do, I had to put aside. I had to pay way more attention to me being everyone else's stable person, even when they were sick, even when they got pissed off at me, even when they didn't understand. But the problem is, if I went down, then so did my family. And so you feel like you're stuck. But if I'd have known how much grief was in me, and like some parts of me that are very empathetic back then, I would have gone to see a therapist on a regular basis, just to do it maybe once a month, not some, weekly thing. Not, I held out until the last family member died, and then it all just hit me, and I laid on my couch in depression. Any money that I had saved up or anything I inherited, which wasn't a lot, I used up, and I just didn't care. I didn't care anymore. I couldn't. I had to go through the stages of grief for all my family members because you got to keep going. People say you got to keep going. You got to keep going. And you're like, okay. So I went through a good 10 so years of my life, just pushing it away, pushing it away. I go to a live music concert. That was my therapy, right? And I could hold it off for a little while. Or I go to a live hockey game. Okay, that's fine. But once those things weren't available to me anymore, because I was not feeling well enough and understanding of what the neurological illness I have, which is like Parkinson's, I didn't know. I was a little bit afraid to drive because certain things were happening and I didn't really want to risk it. So I stopped driving. I had to sell my car. And for a little while, my car was my house. So I essentially had to sell my house. Right. Yes. That's exactly right. And so you actually save some time and some difficulty if you do that first. You can kind of, it helps you be able to handle things. Um, and if I talk to my past self, there's a lot of things that I would just, I don't think that it would change much because I know how I was the whole time. And no matter what anybody would have told me, including my own self, I would have said, I can handle it. I can handle it. I always handle it. I always rise above it. I always get over it. I always uh, can, come out of it. I don't get like that. But it was all in me. And I didn't realize exactly how depressed I was and how much grief I was. And the minute my last family member died, I just didn't give a shit if I was alive or dead because it just didn't seem like, family was important to me and I was just lost. So instead, I just laid on my couch. I did other things, but a little more creative. And I did actually go to school for something. And I tried to learn things, which I did, but I definitely, like 3 years of my life I was just lost in grief. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do much. I stayed in my house most of the time. I didn't talk to anybody. I tried to go to support groups, but unfortunately, I kept running into support groups where everyone was angry. And I already handled that phase. I refused to do that in like a large group of people or a support group. I did that sort of all holed up in my apartment. I went through all that anger, so I already got it out. But because I'm so empathetic, that kind of anger hits me harder. So those of us who are extra empathetic, we have an extra difficulty in life that some people don't quite understand. You can't see it. It's like I call us invisible warriors. You can't see that we perceive your sadness. You can't see that an angry person isn't just. It's like it multiplies in. It hits a an empathetic person a lot harder than it would someone who's not as empathetic, because there's varying degrees of empathetic. So some people would say that I have an unhealthy degree of empathy. However, sometimes there has to be some of us who are willing to take the hits, which is another reason why therapy. Talking to people online sometimes, talking to people who other people who are empathetic because they understand. And I spent a lot of time discerning whether it was me, my feelings, or someone else's. And a lot of times, it's someone else's. Like I'm picking up, I was around somebody at the grocery store, and I just started picking up things, even if they didn't talk to me. Sometimes you can tell by bad body language. You can tell by the look in their eyes. Sometimes you can read their eyes, and you walk out, and so you're kind of feeling what they're feeling for a short period of time. You're kind of sensing that their life is not so great, or that they're struggling with something, or that they're really extra happy. Sometimes it's not just sadness, sometimes it's like they get this manic, or they get the delusion, or they've been hurt so badly that they go completely opposite extreme, and they try and be super positive, and they just ignore it, and they ignore it, and they ignore it, thinking that they're a happy person and that nothing can go wrong and everything is wonderful all the time. And that's just not true. Nobody's life is wonderful all the time. Nobody's is. No one walking around Earth has a super wonderful life. They try to, and people are told, when you break up with somebody, or, you have an ex, oh, well, let them see how, good your life is going, and don't let them see that, it affected them badly. That's crappy advice. Right, exactly. You can have like a string of a month or two where you feel on top of things, you feel like people are friendly, you feel good about things, you're doing well at your job or whatever it is. But at some point, when you're alone, or when you're like it builds up, or when you're alone, you address these things, you realize, like, okay, well, not everything is all good, because those things just can't be ignored. Eventually, it's it's gonna either come up out of you, which is where a lot of it is, or someone else's, and somebody's gonna point out to you something that you couldn't see, because objectively, it's hard to see those things for yourself. It's a little subjective. Someone mentions something, and then you realize, oh, all right, well, I was feeling all right, and you compare that to the last 2 months, and you think, okay, well, what's the matter with me? I mean, my life was okay. What happened? And so then a lot of people question, and that's something you shouldn't do either, because every single person has an up and a down, and I don't care how much they're smiling, it's in there. And a lot of those kind of people end up having major breakdowns at some point if you don't address it. And the only way to really address it is to know yourself really, really well. So anybody asks me, like, what would be my best advice for kids? I'm like, of any variety, whether they're athletes or musicians or mathletes or, artists or accountants, it doesn't even matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. Or they run a country. It makes no difference what it is. The best thing to do is to know yourself really, really well. Because once you know yourself really, really well, you know how you react to things, and you start to understand your feelings better. And if you get emotional, you begin to understand, well, yeah, this is normal. Okay, a lot of people get like this. Um, then it's easier to, later in life, it's easier to overcome those things because you recognize them. I mean, it's okay to go ask for help. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just such bullshit that gets put out there. And I do everything I can to get in people's way about it. And I don't care if it gets into some pushing and shoving. And I don't care if it gets into like a heated debate. I don't care, because that stuff needs to be shut down. No one is weak for asking for help, especially if you're the head of a family, or you're doing something that involves making decisions for a lot of people. You have to admit, you have to know yourself really well to be like, oh, no, I'm not thinking right. I know I'm not. Feeling down for too long. I'm not, um, I'm not as quick minded, or I just been feeling too low for too long, or I've been smiling too much and pretending too much with people. And that's when you want to stop and you want to talk to some people. And sometimes it's best to talk with somebody who isn't like abundantly familiar with you, which is why therapists are helpful, because they're not going to be judging and they're not going to be trying to figure you out based on what they know. So sometimes it's good to go talk to someone who you don't know really, really well, because the ones you know really, really well may not be objective either. And some of it might be about them. Not that it's bad or you're talking behind their back, it's just how you interpret things, how you perceive things. And it might be that you're trying to ask someone else, am I, perceiving this correctly? Or how did I deal with the situation correctly? Or how do I relate to this person who I really like? But there's like a communication breakdown. It's always good to do that. That's why I say therapists, because they don't have that like intimate kind of, you can say what you need to say, and it's not like you're talking behind somebody's back, because likely if you're talking about them, it's because you care and you want to be able, if you have to adjust your behavior or understand how to communicate better, it's okay to ask somebody. It's okay to run something by somebody. They can be your sounding board, whatever. That's perfectly fine. It's good to do that, especially males. I run across males all the time. I grew up, I was around mostly males. So I'm used to being around males, male oriented kind of things, and jobs that I've had more male oriented. I love dudes. Okay. Some of you can be total, you know, ignorant asses, but I've met some ignorant asses who are females, and sometimes just a stage where you're just trying to protect yourself or some other thing, or you've been told a bunch of crap by society, like, okay, like crying is weakness. It's like, no, it's not. It's natural human. It sure is. I mean, sometimes it's cathartic. It gets things out. You don't need it all in there with you. Um, but the thing with like crying or asking for help is weakness is such a lie. I want it shut down. Just I want people to just shut the hell up about it, because that's just wrong. It's just wrong, especially if you are a male and you're supposed to, like, be the head of a family, or you're making decisions for a lot of people, or you know you have people who are relying on you to be able to handle something all the time. You should have some kind of support that you can lean on every so often. Somebody who is there that you can get a hold of to, sometimes it could be your best friend or something, but it's like I said, it is sometimes better to go talk to a therapist. Yeah, yes, good, right. I'm glad. Um, okay, I know it's different time zones, so yeah, I'm gonna have to, yeah, get off too, because I promised somebody I would go try and sing with them, which is good for me. That's cathartic rating. But I found a couple guitarists. So since I can't play because of my neurological thing, so I understand. So if you're going to sleep, have a good night's sleep. I know some people do actually. More people rewatch them later than they do live. So it's all good. I'm glad. I'm glad that other people, like, it helps. If it helps you and you're feeling like, that's good. That's why I do it. And that's why I thank some people, because there are people who will, as hard as it might be, write books about things that other people, or, some people make movies, or some people just go on talking tours. But me, because of my situation, I have to look at your, I'm just happy. I'm crying a little, but it's happy. It's happy crying. I'm just glad to know that somebody else is, that's helpful for other people. It's helpful for me too, because I'm talking about like personal stuff sometimes. And there's the one thing that I didn't even realize I was in zombie mode. I had no idea. Like after my children died, I had no idea. It was like I was just being zombie through the day. It was the best way to explain it. After I talked to this woman, I was like, that is a perfect way. You go through the motions. It's like just totally numb, totally not. Just like I have to get up and go to work. I have to go to the grocery store. I have to. It was like all my joy, all my happiness was gone. I didn't realize until a year later. I woke up in the morning and I started crying so hard because I realized at that point, I'm like, I'm no longer a mommy. I'm not a mommy anymore. And I noticed I was still doing things like I had kids. Like when I would go into the Walmart, my local Walmart, where when I had them, they were. I was always careful to start at the other end of the store, so that at the end of shopping, I would let them like we go to the toy aisle at the end where the toys were. So they had to be good, and they had to stay close to me, and they had to do what we discussed because we would discuss the game plan before we even got in the car, and they would agree. Okay, we're gonna, not do this, but it's okay to do this, not touch anything, blah blah blah. So they knew the plan, and then I'd reiterate it when we were getting out of the car. Okay, remember the plan. What's the plan? I'm asking. Okay, they know the plan. We go into the to go shopping, and if they did that and they were good, and we didn't have any major incidents, then I would let them go to a shelf and pick out like an inexpensive toy for themselves that they could bring back. Not candy. Like I chained them off candy, so they weren't. We didn't have a lot of sugary things, um, but that's what I did. But I noticed even a year later that any store that I went into, one, I never used the candy aisle anymore. I stopped using aisles with candy because right, but I didn't have kids anymore. I was still doing it. It was like I was still going as though I still had children with me. And the same thing with Walmart. I would look for the toy aisle and I would go completely the opposite direction because I was used to having my kids with me and rewarding them with a little toy at the end of shopping. And it all just hit me like a big jag. I mean, and it dragged me down horribly. And I didn't even start feeling the grief or going through the grief until a year later. I woke up one morning, my alarm went off, and I'm just in my bed and there, like waterworks, snotting and crying all over my pillow, looking around like, oh my God, I'm not a mommy anymore. So it was just awful. So that's the other thing. People need to be aware of the fact that grief sometimes doesn't show up until later. Sometimes you don't go through it right away. Sometimes it takes like a year to feel sadness, or a year to be angry, or a year to be all those stages. And there's really no particular order. Okay. Some people say you don't hit these stages yet. And what I'm saying to you is no, you didn't hit the stage yet. But all people go through grief whether they realize it or not. And sometimes it's not in a specific order. So the grief part of it, the anger part, I hit right away. I was angry about it. Very furious, livid. My mind went to some dark places. I mean, I really wanted to just resurrect the asshole. It killed him driving and tortured him in horrible ways. But I got over that because even if given the opportunity, I think back then I probably would have. That was probably that year. I probably would have. I mean, if I had a way to resurrect that asshole, I would have probably tortured him. I'm being honest. I'm just being truthful. During that period of time, I went to dark places in my mind. But once that kind of went away. That's when the total grief and the total awareness and the total acceptance of, okay, I'm not a mommy anymore. So then I consciously would stop doing things that I knew I had built in habits because I had kids. So I stopped doing those things. I purposely stopped doing them because, I didn't need to anymore. And I didn't really want to think about them constantly. Not that I, don't remember certain things. And it's not that I could ever really stop thinking about them in certain sense, but I had to let them go. And it took me another year from that to actually let it go. And then that's when I got a tattoo in remembrance. It's not the world's greatest, but it's there. And that's when I started, giving away their stuff, um, to other people who needed, people in need who had kids. So, uh, for males particularly, I'm saying to you, well, fuck everybody else wants to give you advice. Don't listen to any of that shit. Okay, it's always the right thing to do, especially if you're the one who is leaned on, if you're the head of the household, if you are the one who is dependent on for being a rock. You gotta talk to people. You gotta know yourself from the inside out. You gotta know when you think you might explode, when you think, and see, the more that you know about yourself and the more you know to ask for help for certain things and actually do it, the stronger you become for other people. But you can't do it alone. You can't. A lot of times, family members don't want to talk about that stuff, right? Some people, they don't feel comfortable doing it. So, an outside person, which is why I say therapist, it might be someone else who gets paid. I don't know what everything is called in every country. It could be clergy. It could be clergy. It could be, a friend of a friend's is just a good listener. Like you just find a good listener doesn't know a whole bunch about you. But in the United States of America, dial 988. Okay, if you feel like, okay, this shit just hit the fan and you don't know what the fuck to do about it, even if you're relied upon to be that person to unplug the fan so the shit or the fan's not hitting anybody, it's still okay. It's still okay to call a crisis hotline. It's still okay to make an appointment with, a therapist. Okay, in the U.S., you don't go directly to a psychiatrist. Most of the time, you go through different, but it could be a psychiatrist, if you were interested in medication. I can't poo-poo all medication. I think some of it's unnecessary, especially if you're taking the time, and if, as kids as are growing up, you let them take the time to know their bodies first of all, but to also know themselves and understand how they are. Some parents should encourage that kind of thing because the more they understand emotional intelligence, no matter, even if they have, things like autism, their ways, even if they have Down syndrome. I mean, you have to get used to how to communicate with them, but it is something you should let them do too. It's for every kid, no matter where they're on Earth. Okay, I mean, I know some people in the middle of a war zone. Okay, all that stuff gets skipped, and it's why. It's why. I used to date someone, and one of the things that he said to me at some point was, war works. Like, for what? War on Earth. For what? We couldn't say. Territory. Okay. But, that gets changed around. Is it worth destroying, beautiful architecture? Is it worth destroying lives? Is it worth feeling more powerful? It doesn't. I mean, a lot of it's just hollow winds, hollow, hollow, hollow. So I'm the kind of person that I don't care. I mean, if it really came down to it, I'd jump in the middle. I will sometimes things and just be like, "Whoa, stop!" I mean, I've jumped in the middle of dudes fighting. Like, yep. And like, if I get freaking a left cross or a right jab or if I get hit or harmed in the process, I don't care. It's like, whoa, you go over there, you go over there. Hold on, everybody, just wait. Everybody, deep breath in. What's going on? I'm listening. Okay. I mean, I prefer peaceful talk. You can yell at each other, right? Yell and scream. Give them a bunch of water balloons. Like, just go ahead. Just bombard the motherfucker with a whole bunch of water balloons. Just get it out. Much healthier ways, even for whole countries. Much healthier ways to deal with things. You're not weak for asking for help. You're extra strong, especially if you're the one who gets relied at. If you're the rock of your family, or you're the one that has to, everybody leans back on you. It's most important for you to find somebody who is a very good listener. It might be a therapist, it might be clergy, it might be, two neighbors down, doesn't matter. But knowing somebody is not going to judge you, sometimes you don't really need therapy but you do need somebody to listen to you. There are people like that. I'm one of those kind of people. Clergy, they might not charge you. That's the other thing, is that sometimes if you think money's getting in the way, there are other avenues and options. And sometimes, I know in the US, sometimes there's grants. I talked to a psychology teacher when in the right before 9/11 in the US and through 9/11 and then after 9/11. And I couldn't get proper insurance, didn't cover those things at that time. And I didn't qualify for a kind of grant because I work for a living. So every Saturday he took his time out and for free, he let me come to his office and he let me chat with him for about a year span for free. So in honor of that and to be respectful of that, after a while I said, you know what, I'm going to be okay. And I don't want to take advantage. But he did take his Saturday for time out and for free talk to me for a full hour every Saturday for a year. And I thought that was just great, but I didn't want to take advantage. So when I knew I was going to be okay with certain things, when I understood things better, I stopped going. But in honor of that, I'm also willing to do those things for people on occasion, other people. Because I sometimes, may not need advice, just need to talk to somebody. When I'll listen to somebody all day long, you ask me, I might be able to guide you some way. But otherwise, I'd be willing to take an hour out of my. I've done it for other people. But maybe you know somebody like that. So I wanted to get that out because sometimes there are signs of a kind of sadness, and it can happen to empaths more often. Suicide can happen to empaths more often than anyone else because sometimes we're feeling like when I would go to an ice hockey game, it was easier for me. I grew up a Washington Capitals fan. It was easier for me to go to a game when there were fewer people in the building. Of course, that's not good for the franchise. And I certainly didn't want to be selfish. So when they started selling out, I had to stop doing it. When they started, full house all the time, I had to stop going. I had to, space that out because I'm feeling the emotions of everybody in that building. And it takes me quite a few days to recover, if not weeks or months, depending on the situation. A lot of times I would know. I'm better able to discern, okay, these are not my feelings. Who was I around today? But sometimes I can see it in actors and musicians and people who go live, people who are like through cameras. I can sense it sometimes. And so I've learned to put some temporary walls up. I've learned to protect myself a little better. But I asked for help too. Um, and that's when I stopped taking on some things. Sometimes I'll just go silent. Sometimes I'll disconnect. Sometimes I'll just shut it off for a little while so that I can clear my mind, so that I can take care of my mental health and my stability and my ability to help people. I can put it on hold for a little while. But for empaths, if you know someone who's highly empathetic, they really are higher candidates for depression. So understand grief a little better. Okay, it can seem very irrational to you if you're not in grief. Okay, like I said, I didn't even hit the grief state until a year later. And there are things that remind me of some of my deceased loved ones. And out of the blue, I'll either start crying or laughing because it could be a different trigger. Sound, smells, things like that. It hits us who are empathetic harder. So people should be more aware of that. And if you know somebody empathetic, try to understand that you're not going to understand everything that they get. Okay. And try and be a little more aware that the highly empathetic types are the more likely candidates for suicide. Right? In the US, 988. Okay? You're not weak. For asking for help, you're strong. It makes you a very strong person for knowing for sure you're having a little difficulty. And the sooner you get on that, and the sooner you understand it, and the sooner you start trying to work on it, the better. Especially if you're the rock, if you're the one they lean back on, if you're the one that everyone just assumes is going to be, and if you need to, go cry in the bathroom or the stock room or out in the woods or, you know, ask your neighbor if you can go play pool in their basement and just cry if you need to. Yell. Go out and yell at trees if you need to. Okay? So that's important to me that people know that, especially males. It is, pushed on males more than females. Okay? It is. Not that there aren't some females who end up in the same situation. And that's why I aim for males. That's why I work around males. That's why I try to be around males all the time. That's why. And mostly everything I do is male oriented. Anyway, so that's that. And that's a full hour. I promise, I will figure out how to get some dancing done here. Because I was asked. Okay. One deep breath in. Hold. Yeah. Okay. Not even counting to 10. If you just do that every so often, you train yourself to do it. So I tell people you only need to do it once a day. But during that day, you'll start to know when that perfect time. You do it every day, like you plan it, whatever. I drank my coffee, or I'm getting ready to go to bed. Okay. But sooner or later, you and your body and just your whole self is gonna know when the perfect time to take that breath and hold it is. So just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. may not seem like it's helping, but at a certain point in time, you're going to know when to take that deep breath and hold it and let it go. All right. Take care.